Hi everyone. So Salesforce Development 26. Now let's see what we are going to learn today. Today we will be focusing on the OOPS concept inheritance and then properties of inheritance. Then we'll see a few examples of the inheritance and we'll have an assignment. Then we'll talk about the schema. What is the schema in Apex? What are the different classes, methods are available inside the schema? Then we'll have a trailhead link. Now, what is the OOPS concept? Generally, if you go to any technology, there will be a OOPS concept. So what is the OOPS concept? What is the OOPS? Especially when we say OOPS concept of inheritance. So OOPS concept of inheritance is nothing but there is a parent and the child. So I have a parent class and there is a child class. So this is the parent and this is the child. So when we are passing the behavior, when I say behavior, variable or a methods or a class in the parent class can be variable, can be contained, method can contain, or within the class there could be a possible that class can contain. So whatever the functionality is there or whatever the set of code we are writing in the parent object, so that behavior if we can share from the parent to child is called as a inheritance. In the OOPS concept, inheritance is nothing but passing the behavior from one parent to the another parent to the child. So inheritance is, there are different type of inheritance we have. In general, there are 5 different type of inheritance: single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, multiple inheritance, and the hybrid inheritance. There are 5 type of inheritance: single, multi-level, hierarchical, multiple, and the hybrid. 5 different type of inheritance are there. Now, what is the differences between the 5 inheritance? Now, when I say single inheritance is nothing but, let's assume that I have a class A. Class A. And from the class A, we are passing the behavior to the class B. So class A is the parent. Class A is the parent. Class B is the child. Now, whatever we have implemented in the class A, what can contain in the class A? Class A can contain the variable. Class A contain the methods. Class A can contain the another class details also. So what are the logic that we are writing here? That logic, if we are passing to the single child, if we are passing the details to the single child, is called as a single inheritance. Is called as a single inheritance. So single inheritance is nothing but a parent behavior passing to a single child is called as a single inheritance. Whereas multi-level inheritance is nothing but I have a class A and class A is passing the details to the class B. Right? So class A is the parent and the parent behavior, what are the parent functionality is that we are passing to the class B. Again, from the class B, it can be passed to the class C. That means it's similar like a father, grandfather property is passing to the child, or a father property is passing to the grandchild, right? So class A, what are the properties or a variable, whatever we have, we are passing to the class B and class C. So this is multi-level inheritance. That means there is no end. You can go up to whatever the end you want, you can go. So the property is keep on going down. That means you have a one parent and below that you have a single child. It's a single child. So it's A has a single child of B, again B has a sub child of C. And again, C might be having another child of class D. When we are passing the behavior of the parent to the grandchild is called as a multi-level inheritance. This is multi-level inheritance. And the next one, we have a multiple inheritance. When we say multiple inheritance, so multiple inheritance is, I have a class A. There is a parent called class A and another parent called class B. Another parent called class B. Both the parents are sharing that means child is sharing the single child. It is connected to the single child. So child is connected to the class A, child is connected to the class B. That means one child is connected to the two parents. One child is connected to the two parents. That means class A properties is passed to the class C. Class B properties are passed to the class C, which is called as a multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. So when we say here multiple inheritance, multiple is nothing but there are multiple parents are there. Multiple parents properties are passing to the single child is called as a multiple inheritance. And the next one, we have a hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance is nothing but you have a single parent. Single parent is passing the property to the class B and class C and the class D and the class D. So this is called as a hierarchical inheritance. So that means hierarchical inheritance is there is a single parent and single parent behavior can be passed to the multiple child. And the last one is a hybrid. Hybrid inheritance is nothing but any parent can be passed to the child, any child can be passed to the multiple child. That means single child property is passed to the single parent property is passed to the class B and class C. And again, this child can be passed to the class D, which is a hybrid. So there is no connection here. There is no proper connection. So if you have so many classes or so many childs are there, anywhere anyone can connect it. It's a hybrid inheritance. Now in Salesforce concept is it should have only one parent. Only one parent. That means child can be multiple. Child can be multiple. But the parent should be only single parent. That means in Salesforce, the OOPS concept, the inheritance in the Salesforce is it supports the single inheritance. Salesforce supports the multi-level inheritance. Salesforce supports the hierarchical inheritance. It does not support the multiple inheritance. It does not support the hybrid inheritance. It does not support the hybrid inheritance. Only Salesforce supports a single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. That means wherever the single parent is there, only that concept should be supported in this Salesforce. Child can be multiple, but parent should be a single. If anywhere, if I see the multiple parent, Salesforce does not support. That means multiple inheritance or a hybrid inheritance, Salesforce does not support it. Salesforce support only the single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, which has a single parent and could be possible that multiple child. Now, David, I think 3 days back, we were discussing about the multi-level inheritance, right? So the protected, everything we were checking on this multiple inheritance. Now we will see the example of that, but this is the overall concept in the Salesforce inheritance. Salesforce supports inheritance of single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. Now take a notes of it. So the concept in the Salesforce is one parent and multiple child. Could be one child, could be a multiple child. No, I'm not talking about the relationship, master detail relationship or a lookup relationship or a junction object. I'm not talking about the relationship here. I'm talking about the passing the behavior, which is nothing but a, whatever the logic that we have written in the parent class. So passing that logic to the child class. How many child classes can I pass the information? Done? Okay. So let's see few examples on the OOPS concept. Now, before seeing the example, let's see the properties of inheritance. What are the properties of inheritance? So whenever we want to implement a inheritance, whenever we want to implement a inheritance, what are the properties? That means what are the concepts that I need to keep in mind? Now, properties of inheritance is parents should use the, whenever we are implementing the inheritance. Now, I have a parent and the child. Now, how the child will identify or how the parent will say that I'm ready to be inherited with any other child class? How can parent should say to the system? How can parents should say the to the system? So properties of the inheritance. That means parent should parent should use the virtual keyword. When you say virtual keyword in the parent, so that means if you say here virtual keyword, while declaring the class, you have to specify the virtual keyword. When you say virtual keyword, then you can, that means this parent can be, this parent class is ready to inherit with the child, ready to inherit. So parent should use the virtual keyword or a virtual class. When you say virtual, that means it is ready to be inherited. It is ready to be inherited. And in the child object, what should we specify in order to inherit the parent behavior inside the child? Inside the child, we have to mention the extends keyword. We have to mention the extends keyword. So extended keyword. So when you say extended keyword in the child, that means this, whatever the parent behavior is, there can be extended within the child class. So two things are important for the inheritance. So whenever we are inheriting it, parent should have a virtual keyword and the child should have a extended keyword. When you have these two, then only you are able to extend the behavior of the parent within the child object, child class. Now, while declaring the any variable or a method or a class in the parent, if you specify private method or a private variable or a private class, whatever you have specified, private cannot be inherited. Wherever you see the access modifier private, those cannot be inherited. And without the access modifier cannot be inherited. Without the access modifier. When we do not specify the access modifier, that means by default it will take it as a private. So when we have a private, it cannot be inherited. And inside the parent, whenever we are trying to access any information, we have to use the this keyword. We will see the example. So we have to use the this keyword. And in the parent, we have, in case if you wanted to call the super, if you want to use the some variables of the parent, then we have to use the super keyword. We'll see the example where to use the super, where to use the this keyword. But usually whenever we use the this is used for the class. So this dot a class name. This dot class name. And then super dot, whatever the parent variables or anything that you wanted to call, you can use the super keyword. Take a notes of it. So super is used to call for a parent, right? So if you want to call the parent method, then you can say that super dot method. Whatever the method we have it, we can say that. Done. Now let's see the example. Now let's go ahead. Now, let's say that I'm going to implement a new class, new Apex class. Normally, when we say new Apex class, so let's say here this is the parent inheritance. This is parent inheritance. Let's say parent inheritance. This is the parent inheritance class. This is normally when we write a class. Now I have a parent inheritance. Also, I have a child inheritance. Two classes are there. Child inheritance. Two classes are there. Click on OK. When we say child inheritance, now there are two classes. Now this is the child, the other one is a parent. Now, if I wanted to share, if I wanted to inherit the parent within the child, first of all, parents should say that virtual. Otherwise, I cannot inherit anything within the child. Now, if I try to access, for example, here, I have written some variable. Let's say that public integer x equal to 20. Now, this is the what we have declared inside the parent. Now, this behavior I wanted to access into the child. This behavior I wanted to access into the child. Let's say that in the child, I have a method which is called as a public void. Let's say I'm going to calculate the method. Let's say calculate method. Calculate method. And then I'm going to specify here, let's say integer y equal to, let's say 50. Now here I wanted to get the information system.debug, system.debug. Let's say I'm going to specify here x multiplied by y. Now where is the x? X is inside the parent, right? X is inside the parent. And child is trying to use the parent behavior methods inside this child. Now, whenever I use like this, it says that x is not a valid. X is not a valid. So you should either declare the integer x here. That means you need to declare the variable here. Or if you want to inherit the parent, if you want to inherit the behavior of the parent, then what you need to do is you need to say here public, you need to specify virtual class. You need to specify virtual class. Now, virtual class name is, this is the parent class. This is parent class. In this parent class, we have a public integer. Public integer, we have declared the x equal to 20. We have declared the x equal to 20. Let's save this parent inheritance. Now I have saved the parent inheritance. Now, inside the child, now this is the child class name, but which class I'm inheriting it? There is a possibility that there are multiple parent inheritance are there. This is parent, inheritance. There is another class which is a parent inheritance 1. And there is another class parent inheritance 2. There are multiple classes are there. So when we have a multiple classes, now which class I'm extending it? Which class I'm extending? So that we need to specify in the child. That means in the child, I need to specify public class name. Then after that, we need to specify the extents. We need to specify the extents. Extents. Whatever the parent class is there. Whatever the parent class is there, we need to specify the parent class. We need to specify the parent class. Now let's save this. If I save it, there is no error. There is no error. And if I try to execute this logic also, it will give me the result. Now if I say here, let's execute this child inheritance. Child inheritance, let's say inherit equal to new child inheritance class name, and then inherit dot whatever the calculate method is there. Calculate method. Now if I try to execute it, it will give me the result 50 into the 20. Whatever the output is there, it will give me the output. Method does not exist.
Calculate spelling.
So click on execute. Now if I see the debug, it says that 1050 into 20, it is giving the whatever the result is there, it is giving. That means whether it is a variable or a method, whatever it is there. Now I'm trying to inherit or I'm trying to extend the parent variable inside the child. I'm extending the parent variable inside the child. Let's say that in the parent, this is a public. Now I'm going to specify I'm not going to specify the access modifier. I'll simply say that integer a equal to 10. I'm not specifying the access modifier. When I do not specify the access modifier, by default, it will take it as a private. Now, also I'll declare few more variables here, global integer b equal to 30. Let's say here, I also say private integer c equal to 40. And then protected integer, let's say d equal to 60. I'm just taking some variable here, right? Now these variables, let's see whether I'm able to access all these variables inside the child. Now I have a different access modifiers here. I have a different access modifiers. Now here it says that global integer. Now if I'm defining a global here, my parent, the class name should be also global. Then only I can take it. Otherwise, I cannot consider as a global. If any variable or any method, if I'm specifying the global, the class name also has to be global. Otherwise, I cannot access this. Otherwise, I cannot access. Now let's save this, comment out. If your class name is considered as a global, then only you can declare the global variable or a global method or global class name. Now, if you want a global here, you need to specify the class name as a global. Class name as a global. Right? So this is how you have to declare it. But now we are not accessing this as a global because it is not. Global is nothing but anybody, even third party or anybody who is outside of this organization also can access this class. Now, right now I'm not defining the global. Let's leave that. Now let's go to the child. Inside the child, I have a calculate method, right? So let's say that here I'm calculating the x and y. Now, similarly, I'll print all the variables. What are the variables that I have declared inside the parent? I'm going to print those values. Let's say I'm going to print the a. which is where we have not specified the access modifier. So this is no access modifier. We have not specified the access modifier. Let's see whether it is going to access that particular variable or not. Now the next one which we have declared is public, which is already there, private C. So this is a private access modifier. Private access modifier. Let's see whether it is a printing the value or not. Similarly, the protected. I have a protected. So this protected is whether it is able to retrieve the data protected one or not. Let's say here system.debug, and this is the protected access modifier, which is the D. Let's save this. Parent inherit dot A. Right, A and C, it is not even taking that. A and C, it is not even taking because those are private. Whatever the no access modifier private is there, it is not even taking. Protected is when you inherit the parent to the child, then you can access the protected variable. But private, if you even inherit it also, you will not be able to access the private or a no access modifier. You cannot access into the child. You cannot access into the child. But protected, you can access. When you inherit it, when you inherit the parent, that means in the child class, when you are extending the parent, right, that time you can use the protected keyword, whether it is a protected variable, protected method, or whatever it is there. Right, so this can be possible. This can be possible inside the single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, right? So, or it can be possible with the hierarchical inheritance. Either of these three can be implemented. So this is the single inheritance. Whatever we are saying it, we have a one parent and one parent to child, we are passing it. When we are passing the details, if it is a public or a protected, can be accessed in the child class. Accessed in the child class. Right, now if I try to execute it, now it is going to give me the output. Execute the highlighted one, it is going to print the protected access modifier value also, it is going to print it. Right, 68 is printing it. 68 is printing it. So if you want to see multi-level, this is a single inheritance, right? So if you want to see the multi-level, you need to create another child. You need to create another child. Now in that child, now if you try to pass the information, you can pass the information of this calculate method. Now so far we have seen the variable declaration. For example, let's say that I'm going to declare the method. I'm going to declare the method. I'm going to declare the method. Let's say this is the private method, or let's say no access modifier method. No access method. And similarly, I'm going to declare the public. Now here the access modifier is public, void. Now this is the public method. Public method. And similarly, this is the void. And now what I'm going to do is private. I'm going to specify the private void. This is the private method. Right. So, and then similarly, I'm going to declare the protected. When you say here protected void, let's say this is the protected method, right? Now this is the details which I'm going to specify. Now inside this, I can just print the values of it. Let's say here, I'm going to call system.debug Let's say this is no access parent method. System.debug, this is a public access parent method. And next, this is private access parent method. Private access parent method, and this is protected access parent method. Protected access parent method. Now these are the different methods. Now if you want to access this method, same thing. Now whenever you wanted to access, you can access it. But if there is a no access modifier, you cannot access. If there is a no access modifier, you cannot access it. Right? So only the public can be accessed and the protected can be accessed. Public and protected. Now let's say that I'm going to call the public method and the protected method. Public method and the protected method. This is normal methods here. Now if I say here, this is the public method, I'm calling the public method. And similarly, I'm calling the protected method. There is no parameter, we are not passing any parameter. We are not passing any parameter here. Now if I say here debug, executed, it is going to print the call the parent methods and it is going to print the parent method. Executing the child class, when I execute the child class, what is happening? It goes to this particular class. It goes to this particular child class. In this child class, whatever the logic is there, it will execute the method. This method, it will execute it. From that method, we are calling all the parent variables. What are the parent variables are there? We are calling the parent variables, and then we are inside this child. We are calling the public method. We are calling the protected method. Now that output we are seeing into the whatever the output is there, we are seeing it into the output. Now if I go and check the output, it says that whatever the child calculation we are doing it, that is printing it, and then it is printing the protected access modifier variable. Then it is printing the methods. What are the methods? Normal methods. When we have a normal method, it is printing the methods here. Now let's say here, for example, now I'm going to declare a one more method here. Let's say I'm going to declare here public. Now, while declaring a method, if I specified the virtual, while declaring the method, I'm specifying the virtual and then void. Let's say this is, I'm printing name. Print name. Let's suppose I'm printing the name. Let's suppose I'm printing the name. So when we print the name, for example, here I have a, let's go ahead and print the name. System.debug. This is name from parent method. This is the name. Okay. So this is the print name. We are printing the name. This is the name from the parent method. Now here, what is the difference between the previous one and this one? Here it says that public void, the class method name, and here public, instead of directly void, I'm specifying the virtual, right? So in the method also, we can specify the virtual. When we specify the virtual, now if I wanted to override. So for example, it is printing this name, but I wanted to print the different value. Now, if I say here, now if I try to call this method, let's go ahead and use this. I'm calling this method print name. Now let's save this. Now it is saved, right? Let's save the parent. I'm normally calling the print name, whatever the name of the method is there, I'm generally calling that method. Now here, if I try to execute this, execute the highlighted one. Now click on this. Now it is printing this is the name, right? For example, the scenario is like this. I wanted to inherit the behavior of the parent class, but I wanted to override this. So whatever this logic is written in this print name, right, in this parent method, in the parent class, whatever the method is there, whatever the logic is written here, this logic I wanted to override. That means I wanted to inherit this one as well as I wanted to override it. I want to override the logic that is written inside this method. In case if I wanted to override the logic, then how can we do it? So let's say, for example, I'm going to implement another one. Now public void. Now I'm going to take the same name. Whatever the name is available, I'll take the same name here, print name. Now if I try to take a print name, let's save this. What it is saying that method must use the override keyword. That means when you have a method here, when you have a method in the parent, whenever you are extending the parent and there is a method name is available. For example, if I take a method, public method. Now, if I take a public method, now this method, what it is saying that when you have a public method and if you want to override some logic, there is a possibility that, now let me go to the paint. Now I have a parent and this is the child. Parent and the child. And this is child. Now, usually in the parent, we will be implementing some logic or some methods we will be writing it. Possible that creating the account record or some methods we will be writing it. So parent is containing the multiple methods. Now in the child, what we are doing is, first of all, we are inheriting the parent. Now in order to inherit, we have to specify the virtual keyword here. In the parent, we need to specify the virtual keyword at the class level. And here at the class level, we need to specify the extends keyword. Right? This is the first step. This is step one. Once this is done, now these both are connected. Now I can access all the parent level variable or methods or classes inside the child. Inside the child, I can access. Exactly same, I can access whatever the is there, exactly same, I can access the information here, right? But let's assume that I have the second one. I have this method. I have this method. Now this method, I wanted to use this method, but I wanted to override some logic which is written inside this second method. I wanted to override some logic which is written inside the second method. That means this logic works perfectly fine, but there for this child, this second method needs to be overwritten the logic. Same logic, it cannot be working. That means this method name is, let's assume that this method name is print name. Print name. Now this print name, I need to access that print name method inside the child and I wanted to override the logic. That means, for example, here I'm printing this is parent. I'm printing this is parent. But here I wanted to, in this child class, I do not want to print this is a parent. I wanted to print different value here. Now, in that case, what we have to do is, whenever you wanted to override the logic of the specific method, then you want to override the specific method. So the first thing what you need to specify at the method level is you need to specify at the method level virtual. You need to specify the method level virtual. And here in the child class, you need to specify the override. You need to specify the override. So when you say override, that means you are calling the existing behavior of the parent method and you are overriding that method. You are overriding that method. So that's the reason if you see here in the parent, I have specified the virtual. I have specified the virtual because there is a possibility is there this method might, what are the logic is there in this method might override. So that's the reason we have written the virtual there. And whenever we write the virtual, you have to write here override. You have to write here override. Now inside this override, now I'm calling the print name method. I'm calling the print name. Now let's say I'm saying here super dot the print name, super dot print name, and then I'm printing the system dot debug, system dot debug. Now let's say here, this is child name. This is the child name. Let's save this and click on debug, execute the highlighted one. Now, if I say here debug, now it is printing the name from the parent method and then child name. Now, if I do not specify the super dot print name, what will happen if I try to save this? Debug, execute it. Now I'm writing it here, print name. Let's remove that from the calculate method. Let's specify here super dot print name. Execute the highlighted one. Debug. Right? It says that this is a public access modifier and this is the protected access modifier from the 12th line and the 18th line. From the 12th line and the 18th line, it is not printing the child name. Child name is not printing here. It says that public. Now this is the 8th line. 8th line is, this is the one. Now after that, it is directly printing the 12th and 18th. Public method, protected method, it is not printing the value. It is not printing the value. Let me take out this. Let's call this inherit print name. Let's execute. Debug. Right? This is the name from the parent method and what are the 20 to 15th line. So what is the 22 line here? 22 line is printing from the parent. 22 line printing it from the parent and then 15th line is printing it from the child. Now if I say here, I do not want to call the parent. Comment out that. That means I do not even want to print the parent method debug. I just wanted to override the existing one and print the whatever the latest child data is there. Now print that value. It is printing. This is the child name. Right. Let's say I have another method here. Let's say I'm going to print this. my first name, system.debug. Let's say first name is Mark. Let's save this. Now I'm going to call this my first name from the, so this is the child name, and then I'm going to call super dot, whatever my first name is there, I'm going to call that. Virtual void my first name, arithmetic operation. Where we have a arithmetic operation void. Okay, so let's say here I'm going to return string. Let's save this. Now save the child. If I try to execute this, debug. Now this is the child name, Mark. So what we are doing is we are calling the parent method and printing that value. Printing that value. Any questions on this? Okay. So those are about the information. How can I call the protected of the parent into the child? What are the different keywords like a public or a global, whatever we have, how can I pass the information to the child, grandchild, multi-level, right? So hierarchical, how can I pass the information? So that's how you can practice it. Now we'll give the assignment. Implement a inheritance class for the simple interest. Now simple interest is basically, you all know the simple interest. In case if you are passing the parameter, you can pass the parameter. For example, here, now you have a public method. Now let's say public method. Now you are expecting the some value, string name. Now here I'm going to print plus name. Right, click on this save. Now whenever you are calling from the public method, let's say here, I'm going to call Swapna IT. Now let me debug this. Execute the highlighted one. Right, so it is printing the Swapna IT. So which is the same one, there is no difference. If you have a parameter that you are passing it, you can expect the parameter from the child. You can expect the parameter from the child. Or else if you do not want to declare it here. Now, for example, if you want to print the value that is there. Now you wanted to override this, but let's say for in order to execute it, if you want a parameter, either you can pass it from the same class or from the child class also you can pass it. Same. Okay. Now let's go ahead and implement. Now let's see the assignment. The assignments are implemented inheritance class for simple interest. Now you guys are aware about the simple interest. So what you guys need to do is create two classes. One is a parent and another one is a child class. In the parent class, initialize all the variables and assign those values. And in the child class, only business logic you have to write it. That means child class, you need to pass the variables from the parent. And second one is implement a inheritance class for total count of given the phone number. Whatever the phone number is given, what is the count of it? That means in the parent, initialize all the variables, and in the child, assign the values to the parent variable. Do not assign the values in the parent, just declare the variables. And in the child, assign the values to the parent variable and implement the business logic. So whatever the phone number you have given, for that phone number, what is the total count of? For example, if I say 911111, so what is the total count of 9111? So the total count you need to specify. So those are the assignments. Any other questions? No. Let's move on. The next one is a schema. Now in Salesforce, especially in the Apex, we have a concept called schema. We have a concept called schema. Now in the admin class also, we have seen the schema builder. In the admin class, we have seen the schema builder. Schema builder is basically, it's a graphical representation. Graphical representation of the object, relationship, fields, whatever is there. It's a graphical representation is called as a schema builder. That is in the admin. Now in the Apex also, we have a schema. Apex is also providing the schema. Apex is also providing the schema class. It's a class. Basically, it's a class or it's a namespace. It's a namespace which includes the top level methods and the API names, all the API names or all the object names, field names, everything will be available within the schema. Now, schema is the namespace. In the schema namespace, we have a different classes, methods, and the variables and the metadata information. All the metadata information stores into the schema level. All the metadata information stores at the schema level. Now, schema contains the few methods. There are so many methods are there. Right now, I'm going to just explain the few methods, but other methods also the same. Now let's say here schema is containing the get global describe. Get global describes. Schema is the namespace. Inside the namespace, I have a few methods. One of the method is called as a get global describe. When we say get global describe is nothing but it is going to give us the custom object details, whether it is a standard or a custom object. Now there is a scenario that you need to implement a business logic. While implementing the business logic, you have to pull all the object details. Now, if you go to the Salesforce, in the Salesforce, if I go to the object manager, there are so many object managers are there. I don't know how many object managers are there. We don't know. But the scenario is they wanted to see all the object details on the UI. So the scenario is we have to implement a UI. We have to implement a UI. In the UI, so here in the UI, it has to display, there is a pick list and it has to display all the object details, whether it is a custom object or whether it is a standard object, all the object details it has to display. Now, whenever you wanted to pull all the object details inside the Salesforce, that means you need to write a logic inside the Salesforce. business logic, you have to write it to pull all the object details. Now that time it is so difficult to check each object level. What is the object name and then hard code into the Apex logic and check each logic, each object name, and then go to the Apex class, write the logic inside this. So it is so difficult, right? Now Salesforce is providing some predefined methods, some predefined methods. So by using these predefined methods, what we can do is we can pull all the object details, all the object details. Let's say that I'm going to put the debug log here. Search for a debug log. Click on this debug log. Now inside this debug log, click on a new button. Now let's say here, user. Now let's say this is the user. Who is the user here? User is April batch. Now let's use the April batch here. Right, I'm just putting it today, 9:20 a.m. to 9:50 a.m. And the debug log, I'm going to specify the debug log SFDC dev console. SFDC dev console, and then click on a save. Now there is a new debug log, trace log is added 9:20 to 9:50. Now let's go ahead and execute it. So for example, I wanted to get the all the object details. If I wanted to get all the object details, what is the best place to get the all the object details is the schema. Schema dot get global describe. Get global describe. Now the output of this is it's stored inside the map of string comma schema dot s object data type. S object type. Now we will see that later. Now this is the schema dot get global describe. Now let's see, print this system dot debug. Let's say this is the object details. Object details. Now here I'm going to specify schema dot global get global describe. Let's execute this. Execute the highlighted one. Now if I see here debug, it is going to give me only the not all the information. It just gives me the only few information. Now let me go to the debug log. Now right before it was no logs were there. Now there might be one log which is created. Click on this view. Open. Now here, let's say this object details. What are the object details are there? I'm going to copy all the object details. Copy this. Let's go to the right. Now here we have a so many information is there. Accepted. This is accepted. Event relation is the one object. Account is the another object. Account change event is the another object. Right? So these all are the object details. These all are account contact role, change event, account history, another object, account parent, right? Account share, right? So similarly like this, for all the objects, I'm going to get the information. All the objects, I'm going to get the information. Now, if you want to get all the objects, everything you can capture it by using the schema namespace and then get global describe. You will be able to get all the object details that are available inside the Salesforce. Now you might see the few objects that are not even available here, like a account you can see, like account history, those objects you cannot see, right? So those you can see here, file, open. Now let's say here, Now you can see AI application, account change event, account clean info, contact role change, account paid history, right? So these all are the objects. Now, if you wanted to get all the objects in the Apex, the best one is use the schema namespace. Using the schema namespace, you can get all the object details here. For example, if you want to store this all the object details into the one variable, if you want to store it into the one variable, the output of this, let me show you that schema dot get global describe. So what is the output of this get global describe is map of string comma schema dot s object type. This is the output. This is the output. Now let me store that into the map of string comma s object type, and then I'm going to store it into the object map equal to schema dot get global describe. Schema dot get global describe. Now, if I'm going to print this instead of the schema global describe, I'm going to print the object map. Now that is also gives me the same result. Now this is also provides the same result. Now these are the information: account clean info, contact role change, account history, account paid, right? So all this information, account is the object, all the object details I can get it. Now, if you want to store the information of the all the object, you have to store it into the data type called map of string comma schema dot s object type. Map of string comma schema dot s object data type. Because the key will be now here. Now these are the variables, right? Now in this case, now the data is the entire data is stored in the form of map. It is stored in form of the map. Now map of whatever this one is there before equal to whatever the values are there. This is a string values. These are the string values. So key is a string. Key is a string. Key is a string. Now after that we have a values. Now what are the after equal to is there? After equal to everything will be values. So those values are stored in the data type which is called as a schema dot s object data type. Those are not the just an object or a string. It seems like a string, but actually it stores into the schema dot s object type. S object data type. Now this entire values will be stored. That means in the map, I have a key and value. Now this is the map. Inside the map, I have a key and this is the value. Key equal to value. Now in this case, key is nothing but, let's say here, account. Account is the key. So whatever this account is there, that is the key. And the value will be whatever this after equal to. It seems like a string, but it is not a string. Now here value is basically the stored in the data type that is stored is schema dot s object type. S object type. Now key will be stored in the form of string. Key will be stored in the form of string. Now similarly, account feed or account history or account share. So string is a account share. Account share, all the small letters. Key will be account share. Now whereas a value will be account history. Account history and the data type is schema dot s object type. Schema dot s object type. Now, in case if you want to get only the values, I'm not interested on the key. I'm not interested on the key. I just want to get the only values. If I want to get only the values, how can I get it? Now we are storing the, now here we have written the, in the anonymous window, we have written map of string, comma, schema dot s object type, and then I'll say that object map equal to schema dot get global describe. Get global describe. This is what we have written. Now this is complete the map information. It is map information. It is storing the details. Now let's assume that from these details, I wanted to get the only values. I'm not interested on the key. If I wanted to get only the values, how can I get it? Now here in the object map, I have a key and value. From this key and value, I want to get only the value. I'm interested only the value.
Object map dot values.
Object map dot values. Object map dot values. If I use this object map dot values, I'm able to get all the values. And if I wanted to store these values in data type, which data type I can store it? In case I wanted to store the values, in which data type I can store it?
String. List of string.
Now, what is the data type of values? What is the data type of values? What is the data type of values?
Schema dot s object type.
Schema dot s object type. Okay. Now, if I say here schema dot s object type, right? And then the object name is, let's say that object map values. What I'm doing here, I'm getting the values, I'm storing into the object map values. This is the variable name, and the data type is schema dot s object data type. Now, how many values can it be stored? One single value or a collection of values?
Single.
Single. If I want a collection,
List.
list. I need to use here list. List of schema dot s object type, and then object name equal to object map dot values. Now let me show you again here. Now, here we have a map details. Map details are schema dot get global describe. When we are using the schema dot get global describe, we are storing all the information into the object map, and the data type is map of string comma s object. Now from this map, I want only the values. What are the values are there? I wanted to store only the values. Let's say here schema dot s object type. Schema dot s object type. I wanted to store only the values. If I want the values, now take the data type of the values. This is the data type of the values. Now here let's specify list of, because we will be having the multiple values that we are going to get it. So list of schema dot s object type, and let's specify the variable name object map values equal to whatever this object map is there, that object map dot, we are going to use the values. We are going to use the values. Now I'm going to print all the values here. I'm going to print all the values, which is object map values. Object map values. Now let's execute this. Execute the highlighted one. Debug. Now it is printing the all the values, right? So what are the values are there? Account, contact history, all this information it is printing. All the information it is printing. Now here right now we have all the object names. We have all the object names. Now let's say that from the object you wanted to get all the values. Then we are getting the values of all the object here. Now let's assume that, for example, now here it is giving the some thousands of object details, right? So we have so many objects are available. If I go to the file, open, and if I see here object, there are so many objects are there. Now let's assume that I'm not interested on all these objects. I'm only interested in account object, but in the account object, I wanted to get all the fields. Whatever the fields are available inside this, whatever the fields are available inside this, all the fields details I wanted to get it. In case if I wanted to get all the fields, in case if I wanted to get all the fields from the object, then how can we specify? Now in that case, what we have to do is you need to specify the, now so far we are getting the object details here, right? We are getting the object details. Now from this object details, I just wanted to get only the account field information, the account field information. Now if you want to get the account field information, then what you can do is object map. Now in the object map, I have all this, right? So here I have a key. Key is a string, right? So dot get. From the map, I'm going to get the key which is called as a account. Key which is called as a account. For that key, get everything. Now if I say that object dot get, if I say object dot get account, now what will happen? Let me print this system dot debug. Now let's print this one. Now let's execute this. Debug. Now what it is saying that it is giving me the null value because we are not specified anything. Now get here account. Now let me execute this. Debug. Now it is giving me the account. Now from this account, this is the value. This is the value. So from this account, what I need basically, I need a field information. Now after this, also we have a few more methods. Schema has few more methods which are called as a get describe. Get describe. Now we are going to get the describe dot. From this, we are going to get the fields. I'm interested only in the fields dot get map. Fields dot get map. Now let me execute this. Now what it is giving? It is giving the account source, account number, active field. These are the fields. These are the fields which are available. Now in order to get the fields, what we have done is first we get the object. From the object, we have specified the object dot object name dot whatever this object name is there, get account, get describe. From the get describe fields dot get map. Fields dot get map. Now we have received all the fields: account number, account source, active field, right? Annual revenue, billing address, and billing city, billing country, billing geocode accuracy, billing latitude, billing longitude. So many fields are there. Right now in the debug, we can see only this information. But ideally it is getting the all the information. Ideally, it is getting the all the information. Now let's say here it is giving me the all the details. It is providing all the information. Now from this here again, this is a map. The output is map. This is the key and this is the value. Now from this map, I just wanted to get only the key values. What are the key sets are there? Only I wanted to get the key set. Now in that case, what you can do here? Now get map dot key set. For map, we have a key set. If I say here key set, then what will happen? It is going to print only the keys. It will not print the values. Now debug, now it is printing only the keys: account number, account source, active, annual revenue, billing address, city, country, geocode, latitude, longitude, all this it is information. Now there are dots are also available. Now in case if you wanted to see complete information of the log, you want to see the complete information of the log. Now here these are the debug logs, right? So right now it is created only the 3005 bytes. Now if I go to this view log, now what is happening here? It's going to show me the log. Now it is saying that object map. After that we have a all high dots are available. That means there is so much data is available. Now in case if you want a full log information, if you want full log information, what you can do is either you can update a filter. Now let's say here filter the one which we are done the user debug log 920 to 950. Now click on this filter. When you click on this filter, it will show you the what level of debug logs you wanted to capture. Database just information, workflow just information, right? Now here validation just information, call out just information, Apex code finest, Visual Force, wave information, debug. If you want to change anything, now here I wanted to collect all the information, fine. Fine means all the information I wanted to collect. Info is just the information, the basic information. What are the basic information is there? Those are the basic information. Now workflow is where I wanted to. None means I do not want to collect any workflow. Workflow are related to the, could be possible that workflow rules, process builder, right? Lightning flows. I do not want to capture any information of the workflow. You can specify none. Now, whenever there is an error happens on the workflow, only that time I wanted to capture the information. Then you can specify error. If you want to capture only the warning messages, you can specify warning. If you want to capture only the information, then you can say info. Fine means almost every information. Finer means all the information. And there is another one, finest means each and every information I wanted to capture. Each and every information I wanted to capture. In that case, finest. Right, so these are the information. For example, if you want to create a new debug log, now this is a SFDC dev console. Now let's click on this cancel. Now I wanted to create a new one. Now if you want to create a new one, search here a debug log, debug levels. So go to the debug levels. Now in the debug levels, click on a new. Let's say here, Swapna IT logs, right? Now here database, I'll say finest, workflow, finest, everything I wanted to capture, validation info, and call out finance, Apex code, all the information, portfolio is also all the information, Visual Force also I wanted to capture everything, system information I wanted to capture all the details, right? These are the details I wanted to capture. Now if you say here none, now there is a this what is the information it is captured in the events, it gets added. When I say system none, there is nothing gets captured. If I say info, just the information gets captured. Only this information it is gets captured. If I say fine, now it has a few more information it will capture. So it will provide you the all the information what it is going to capture in the debug log. What is the information it is captured in the debug log? It is going to specify. Now let's click on save. I'm creating the new log. Let's click on a save. Now it is created the Swapna IT logs, right? This is the most information I'm capturing it. Now let's say here, debug logs, debug logs. Level is the one where we are creating the new debug level. Now if I go to the debug logs, in the debug logs, I can say right now, click on the new. Now let's say user is April batch and 946 to the 1060. Now let's say here, debug logs, we have a two debug logs right now. Levels, we have a two debug levels. Now here developer console and Swapna IT log. Now this time I'm going to take Swapna IT log, the one which we have created the debug level. The one which we have created the debug level. Let's say here I'm going to capture it from the 951. I'm going to capture it from the 951 to the 1060. Click on it, save. Now it is capturing. Now here it is the user debug log. Now this is the Swapna IT one. The previously which we have done it 9:20 to 9:50 a.m. This is for the 9:50 a.m. and 9:51 a.m. onwards we are using the Swapna IT logs. In case if you wanted to delete the previous logs, you can click on this delete all. If you click on the delete all, it will be deleted. Right? Now if you want to edit this, you can edit this, the one which we have created previously. You can edit this and let's say here, I'm going to capture the new log, Swapna IT log, click on this. Now this one is also updated, the Swapna IT. Now if I try to execute again the debug log, now let's click on execute the highlighted one. Now refresh, now it is collected all the information. Let's refresh this. Now it is created the 2986 bytes. Click on review. Now we have the object, right? And the debug logs are, we have account name, billing country. But this time also it is taking the information. Only user debug it is taking. Now let's say I wanted to increase the user debug log. Now in that case, let's go to the debug level. Let's click on the edit. Where do we have a user debug? User underscore debug. Now it is in the Apex code. So user debug, we have given already finest. Let's take out this none, Visual Force none, system none. We do not want to capture anything. Call out none. We do not have any call out. Validation none. Workflow, for now I'm not capturing any workflow. Right? Database, let it be there. Now we are capturing the user debug info, user debug, user debug fine, and then finer, finest, all this information we are capturing it. Let's go to the debug logs. Click on this view. And let's say if you want to download this debug log, you can also download it. If you download, you will be able to get as a notepad. So in the notepad also, it will be displayed the same. No, this is the information, whatever we could see in the debug log, it is displaying the same. Right? So you can play with the debug log and see that creating the different debug levels and try to put the debug and see how it is getting captured the information. Now let's suppose that you wanted to, this is the all the fields you are getting it. All the fields information you are getting it using the object map dot get, specify the account here, what are the object you wanted to specify the object. In case if you want all the object fields, then you need to loop through this object. You need to loop through this object and for each object, get all the fields. Get all the fields. Now, similarly in the object, now if you go to the account object, now the first one we have seen how to get the all the object details. Now for a single object, how to get all the fields that we have seen. Now let's assume that we have a record types. We have a record types in the object. If I wanted to get all the record types, how can I get all the record types? How can I get all the record types? Now, whether you wanted to get the specific record type or all the record types. Let's assume that I wanted to get all the record types. I want to get the all the record type information. Now, how can we do that? Now, let's see. Let's go to the object here. Let's say, now this is to retrieve all the record type information. And this above one is to retrieve all fields for single object. For single object. Now, how to retrieve the all the record type information for single object? For single object. Now here, let's say that I'm going to declare the variable string object API name, object API name equal to, let's say I'm going to specify the account, right? Now for this account, let's get the object details. Now in order to get the object details, let's say here, I'm going to use the data type schema dot Describe object result. Describe object result. Describe S object result equal to, let's say, S object result equal to whatever the schema is there, schema dot describe S object result schema dot get describe schema dot get global describe, and then I'm going to get the specific object. The object is, this is the object name. That is the object name dot get describe. Get describe. Now here we are going to get all the object details. Now from this object details, I'm going to get the record type. Now all the record type information will be stored inside the schema dot record type info. Record type info. Let's say that I'm going to get the record type info here. Record type info equal to whatever this S object result is there. I'm going to take that S object result dot. I need to get the record type info. Record type infos. No. Now here I'm going to get the S object result. From the S object result, I'm going to get the record type info. Now let's go ahead and print this. What is the value that we are getting it? System dot debug record type info. Now let's execute this. S object result dot
Get record.
okay.
Line number 21.
Get record. Click on this debug. Now we can see that in the account object, we have a record type ID. This is the one ID which is the active. This is the customer name. Let me copy this. Get developer details. Customer account is the developer name. Customer account is the developer name, and name is the customer account. Developer name is nothing but a API name, and normal name is a customer account, and the record type is this is, and this record type is a active, and it is a default, and this is the master. And the second one is, this is the first one. This is the first one. And then second one is, we have a individual. We have a individual, and that for individual, developer name is individual underscore person. Normal name is the individual person. Record type is, this is the record type, and this is active, and it is available for it. And this is not a master. It is not a master record type, or a it's not a default record type. It is not default record type. This is the second one. And then we have a third one. Third one is a schema record type. Inside this schema record type, the third name is parent account. Parent account, that is the developer name. and a normal name is a parent account. Get record type is, this is the get record type. So how many records are there? We have a 3 record types. If I go to the account, there are 3 record types are there. Customer account, individual person, parent account. Customer account, individual person, parent account. Now here, now let's assume that I wanted to get all the things. We are getting the all the information here in the record info. Record type info, I'm getting all the records. Now let's say that I wanted to look through the each record type info and get the name and what is the record type ID. I wanted to get it because while printing it, it's not printing the all the information because it has some restriction at the debug log level. It's not printing all the information. In that case, I wanted to print all the information. If I wanted to print all the information, let's say that here I'm going to loop through this record type information. I'm going to loop through this record type information. Record type information data type is schema dot record type info. So use the data type schema dot record type info. Let's say info colon record type info. Record type info. Now here I'm going to collect each one of them. Let's say that whatever the variable name is there, that variable name dot get name. Get name. And then I'm going to specify the, let's say here, let's print this system.debug. I'm printing the get name. This is the name. And then I'm going to print the ID. Name and the ID. For ID, I'll say that info dot get record type. Get record type ID. I'm going to get record type ID. Let's go ahead and get this, execute this. Now click on a debug. Now we have a customer account, right? Customer is the name is the customer account. ID is, this is the ID. Second name is individual person. ID is, this is the one. Third one is a parent account. ID is this one. And master ID is a by default. It's a default. It's a hidden. We cannot see master ID here. It's a hidden one. We have a master ID. That is also it is taking. Right? These are the how we can get the record type ID. Now, in case based on the, right now what we are doing is we are printing all the record types. This is all the record types we are printing it. For example, if I want a specific record type, if I want a specific record type, now I know the name of it. I know the name, but I wanted to get the record type ID for a specific record type. Get record type ID for specific record type name. Specific record type name in single object, for a single object. For single object. In case if you wanted to get this, then what you have to do, now I'll write it in the single line. Usually in the real time, what we will do is we will use the schema dot s object type, schema dot s object type dot. Now I know which object I'm going to query it. So we will specify the account. Account, I'm going to specify it dot get record type info. Get record type info by name, because I know the name. Name is, let's say, get, the name of it is, for example, I wanted to get the customer account. So this is the name which I know, customer account. Now I'm going to get only the customer account. For customer account, I wanted to get the record type ID. Record type ID. For customer account, I wanted to get the record type ID. Schema dot sObject dot account. Account is the object, and then get record type infos by name. Now, whether you wanted to, because we are searching here by name, which is called as a customer account. In case if you wanted to search by developer name, then you have to say by developer name. Get record type infos by developer name. And then get the, whatever the name, pass the name, and then get record type ID. Now the output of this will be the ID. Data type is ID. ID, let's say that account record type ID. Record type ID equal to schema.sObject type dot account dot get record type infos by name. Get the whatever the record type name is there, that pass the record type name, and get the record type ID. Now I'm going to print system.debug. System.debug, I'm directly printing the account record type ID. This is for the customer account. Customer account record type ID. And let's go ahead and execute this. Debug, this is the one. This is the customer account record type ID. Now if I search it here, I'm able to see. So this is the customer record account ID. That's exactly we are able to see here, right? Now in the real time, what we will do is, if I wanted to get the record type, now last class or 3 days back when we are creating the account, now how we did it, so account ACC equal to new account. Now ACC dot name equal to, let's say that what are the information is mandatory. Let's go to the account, click on this new, click on the next. Account name, only account name, email is mandatory. Cancel. Now let's go ahead and create account name is, let's say here, record type testing. Now ACC dot email, email underscore C, rt@gmail.com. And then I'm going to specify ACC dot record type ID. Record type ID. Now, if you remember, last time what we did is we have copied this customer account ID. So we did like this, right? So we have passed the record type ID, right? Insert ACC. Right? So if I try to execute this, what will happen? It will create a record inside the account. Now let's refresh here. Now there is a record testing, old is created, but the record type which we have passed is hard-coded ID, right? So I have passed the customer account, which is hard-coded ID, we have passed it. Instead of a hard-coded ID, now if I wanted to pass from the, in the real time, what we will do is we will not pass the hard-coded ID. So we will directly query from the schema. We are directly retrieve it from the schema.sObject, for which object, account object, get the record type infos by name, get which name, which record type we are passing it, customer account, and then get the record type. Now this record type ID, I wanted to pass it here. Instead of passing this hard coded, we have to pass this ACC record type ID. If I say this, executed. No, I did not highlight that. No, let's highlight this entire thing. Executed. Now it will be created the another record. It is created the new one, and this new one record type is customer account. Customer record type account. In case if you do not want to pass the hard coded even in this schema level, even here also if you do not want to pass it, there is another way you have to hold for that. Okay, we can pass it if you do not want this customer account also, if you do not want the hard coded value here, there is a way to pass it. There is a way to pass it, so we can pass that later. We will see that how to do that. But for now, if you want to get the record type, if you want to get all the fields levels, if you want to get all the fields levels, so basically in the real time, what we will do is we will use the schema. Using the schema, we will try to get either all the record types, single record type, or all the fields, or all the objects, all the objects.
Ma'am, we can also get the record type from SOQL queries. So
Yes.
why do we need to use this type of
When we do the
complex
SOQL query,
schema?
yeah, we have not yet covered the SOQL query, but when we do the SOQL query, what will happen is additionally you are wasting the one SOQL execution. But if I use the schema, schema is by default Salesforce is providing it. Schema is by default Salesforce is providing it. If I run the schema, it does not matter anything at the backend. Now let's say here, for example, I'm just executing this, execute this. Now, if I run this schema, what will happen? I'm getting the information from the schema level. So without any execution, without touching the database, So sometimes what we wanted is we do not want to waste the Garner limits of the execution of the SOQL query. So mostly we will avoid all kind of a SOQL queries if there is a possibility that by default Salesforce is providing it without any limitations. If I wanted to get the record type, then we will go for a schema dot. If you want to go for a SOQL also, you can go for SOQL. There is no doubt. But if you have a logic that SOQL might hit the Garner limits, so in the real time, what we will do is mostly we will avoid the SOQL queries in order to avoid the Garner limits. Okay, so that's all for today. So in case if you wanted to know more about the schema, so search here schema classes in Salesforce Apex. So go to the Salesforce page, reference guide. So schema classes, get global describe, the one which we have discussed right now. And also we have a describe S object, right? If you wanted to get the schema classes, the methods, and the record type, if you wanted to get the record type info. And these are the schema methods, search class, security, select options. Let's search here record type. Now in the S object type, record type info class. So record type info class is the another class. So using this record type, either you can do the SOQL query. When you do the SOQL query, you are going to execute one SOQL transaction gets executed at the backend. That means out of 100, if you are running it SOQL query one time, one execution. If it is a 10 executions are there SOQL query out of 150, then it is going to execute 10 transaction or 10 queries gets executed. Right. So in case if you wanted to avoid the SOQL transaction, you can use directly the schema. So mostly in the real time, we do not use the SOQL query just to query the record type. We use the schema. Now SOQL is the one which we are going to cover tomorrow. Then we will see how we are going to get the record type using the SOQL. But these are the standard Salesforce methods. When you use the standard Salesforce methods is safe, that you know that it is not going to hit the Gartner limits in any case. Right, there are different ways you can use this schema. Now I'm going to give you these reference links. In real time, yeah, that's what I was saying it. In case there is a scenario that you wanted to get all the fields name, right? Sometimes what happens is you have already developed the program and it is already delivered to the production. It is already delivered to the production. Now, once it is delivered to the production, there is a scenario that they wanted to uh, create a few more fields inside this. Now your logic is already there inside the production. Now if you add a few more fields right now automatically that field should be used in the Apex logic. That means now 2 years back you have implemented the Apex logic. You have implemented the Apex logic 2 years back. When you have implemented the Apex logic 2 years back, now if there is a requirement to add a new fields, you need to add a new fields into the account object. Now, when you add a new fields in the account, at least your logic should be automatically capturing the fields. Whatever the fields are there, it should automatically capture the fields in your Apex logic. Instead of touching that logic, what you can do is, or if you wanted to write a generic logic in the real time, then we use a schema. Now, sometimes we need to write a generic logic to get the fields or to get the record type, because record types will be available in every object, right? So every object you cannot execute this single line of code, right? So this is common line which is used for the all the objects. Similarly, fields also, you wanted to capture the fields. Now you wanted to implement a logic. Now, whenever you pass the object from the outside, like a lightning aura or a visual force or a light LWC, when you pass the object, it should automatically capture the fields, automatically get the fields. In that case, what we will do is we have to use this logic, and whoever is passing the object, whether it is an account, opportunity, or a contact, whichever the object I'm passing it, whether it is a stand object or custom object, by default, it should get the all the fields from that object. If you want that generic logic, then we have to use it. This is the logic we have to use it. So if you join the company, if you are reviewing any code, then you might see some code which is says that schema dot s object, schema dot get global describe, schema dot get object API name. So those will be, you will be able to see. So when you see schema dot, do not be worried about it, because when you see schema, that means the developer has used the schema to get the certain information of the object. Any other question? So that's all for today.